Welcome to the Westside Barbell podcast. Today's topic is Olympic weightlifting, which has been a commonly asked question since the Olympics are on right now. So Lou, we'll get straight into this. Our first question, Lou, what do you think the future holds for USA weightlifting after their turnout in this Olympics?
Well, as usual, it's going to be a sad future. If they don't change, if you just repeat the same thing over and over, it's a sign of insanity. They've been doing this since 1972, since they dropped the press, and someone believes that speed is more important than strength. Strength is the most important component to lifting weights. If that wasn't true, you wouldn't have weight classes. I have weightlifters here. I have one here right now from Israel, and it's typical. They don't have, everyone that's ever came here, they can't squat, and they have weak backs. Two primary things you must have to be a weightlifter. And it's really a sad state of affair. They need a different set of training methods. I have a weightlifting book, and there's a book from China about Chinese weightlifting, actually. And how many golds, Tom?
7.
7 golds.
7 golds and 1 silver.
And 1 silver. Now, you know what? Monkey see, monkey do. That's all you got to do. And don't argue about, don't come up with excuses why they're so good and you're not. Because we got all the athletes. In my sport, powerlifting, we rule the world. We got the same athletes you do, so I don't understand this discrepancy between winning contests and breaking world records. In the last 16 months, we broke 12 all-time world records ourselves. So, but you have to get a big squat and a big amount of back strength if you want to succeed at Olympic weightlifting. Nam Suleiman, for instance, was a 132-pounder. He front squatted 528 on a regular basis. He had a 435 clean jerk. So if you guys got a calculator, add that up. I believe his name was Lou from China, 154-pounder or so, 578 front squat with a 440 clean and jerk. Then, if you go on to years ago, Christoph from Bulgaria, they're super heavyweight. Back then, I believe he snatched 473. He had a 749-pound front squat and an 854 back squat. So why do people here, I say, how much do you power a clean and jerk? They'll go 360. What's your front squat? 370. You know, that sport is 4 elements. You have 2 poles, you have the front squat and the jerk. Whatever you're weakest in, that's what you're stuck with. So, and you notice the Chinese do the drop jerk now. They drop down into a full squat and stand back up. It takes enormous amount of leg strength to do that. But on top of that, you have to have a reserve amount of leg strength. You just can't be borderline on everything and expect to get new clean jerk records. It's not going to happen until you push up the squat by box squatting, which I've told these guys for years. And also, the technique is incorrect in America. I used to think your technique was okay. We sell a book about the clean jerk technique. I want people to buy that book. I don't like to sell anything because I don't even work in the office. But if you guys want to be good, you got to change how you're lifting. You don't lift all with your legs. It's with your back. Look at the back angles. Every one of these Olympic or world champions show the back angle. The bar's over. If you look at Lee James, go look at Lee James when he lifted for us. I believe he's the last legitimate good lifter we had. It almost looked like he's doing arch back bent over rows when he pulled. You have to change what you're doing, or the next Olympics will be the same story and on and on and on. I've ranted and raved enough here.
What makes China so special? Like, why do they dominate so much?
Because they're very strong. I watched a 154-pounder set the weights on a box. He got into a full squat, crawled under it with his butt about 6 inches off the ground, adjusted, and stood up at 484. What the hell? That takes an enormous amount of strength. They do snatch, grip, deadlifts. And if I said this, I'd be ran out of America. They do snatch, grip, deadlifts until they actually round over or they can't get the weight off the ground. Now, if I told people, why are the Chinese doing it? All you got to do is do what the Chinese, it's on the websites, just get on there and see what they're doing. Concentric squats. One thing, America, 2 things they don't do that destroys their lifts. 1, no isometrics. You have to do, at the second pole, the bar gets there, and basically the weight now is slowed down to 0, so the weight is actually the same mass as what's on the bar. And so you need to do isometric work there. My friend Jimmy Benjamin, he said two things. He was 3-time national champion here. 336 clean jerk at 132 back in the 70s. And Jimmy said, box squat. I'm not making this up. Box squat was one of his best things for hips. And also, he would set the bar a different position, but one was right where the second pole is. He would pull up against the pin, hold it for 5 seconds, and he would add weight until he couldn't hold it for 5. Then he would put the bar on top of the pin and power clean off that pin with no leg drive. And those two elements, he said, that really helped him a lot.
Lou,
did I answer that question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We'll get back into it. I'm sure China's going to be over and over in this. But for people who don't know...
Oh, I got one more thing. Mm-hmm. You don't do any eccentric work. If you would, like again, Tom, what's this freaking book cost? Like,
about $25?
$25. This could change your life. Managing the training of the weightlifters is how I started in 1982. I'm a powerlifter. I took this book, used their methodologies, and became owning the strongest powerlifting gym of all time. The greatest female and male lifter out of this gym. And no one's even close. All right? I took their methodologies, applied it to my sport. If you don't go through this book, this tells you what will make a weightlifter. But you don't do any eccentric work. You have to do 10 to 15% of your training has to be eccentric. You just can't catch a weight and fall down. I mean, you guys, that's why you can't squat, all right? And when you catch a weight, you need to stop it. This is one thing I've really noticed. I have people come here, they'll do a power clean. I don't know what a power clean is, obviously, because they'll catch the bar high, go down to full squat, and come up. Well, when you catch a weight, you want to immediately stop it. The same thing as a def jumps. When you land, you stop, and then you rebound. You want to catch that weight and rebound. And you're missing the whole boat. There's a lot of simple things that can really make a big difference, I think, in your training. All right, next, please.
Well, to build up upon that, for what people might not know is, what is your own personal experience with Olympic lifting and why it plays such a crucial role in Westside Barbell?
Well, I Olympic lifted until after I graduated from high school. I immediately was drafted into the Army. So 2 weeks before I went in October 1966, I went to a power meet. And I went to that power meet, and I saw 4 would-be IPF world champions. And I said, I've never seen people built like this. I immediately switched sports at that point. But and I have no reason to lie about this. I had a 670 deadlift at 180. You know, I had the biggest toe in the world during 1973. 20 more than won the worlds. 1655. I had a 665 squat, no gear, and a 670 deadlift with no gear, no Olympic belts, no reps, no nothing. All right, I power clean a bar that did not revolve 320. I used the Olympic lifts to help my pulls. All right, and so you got to be immensely strong because I power clean 320 or 180 with a bar didn't revolve. So you just you got to work like that.
Then when you were like even to this day and growing up, what who would you consider the greatest Olympic weightlifter of all time?
In our country?
Just in general.
Well, probably Alexis. He's set 80 world records. And if you look how he trained just like Westside, conjugate system. You know, many weightlifters don't know about the conjugate. They asked me, could I use the conjugate system? It came from the Dynamo Club and over in the Soviet Union in 1972, led by Dr. Medvedev and Verkhoshansky. It worked both for track and field and for Olympic weightlifting. And I followed the conjugate. I was in the conjugate. Bodybuilders do the conjugate. Everybody does conjugate. MMA is a conjugate, if you ask me. You go from kicking to punching to grappling to chokes. It's all switches. One, and you don't get an armbar, but maybe in the next round you got an armbar. You go back to it, and that's what the conjugate system is: constantly rotating spatial exercises. And make sure I get into why you have to max out.
Well, that's the next question on here, is what role does maximum strength play in Olympic weightlifting?
It plays an incredible role because, I mean, like I said, if speed was the answer, why doesn't a 123 lift what a super heavyweight does? It's impossible. He doesn't have the mass nor the strength. So if you don't have mass, you must be stronger pound for pound. Your relative strength has to be stronger than a large man. Here at Westside, and basically now the Bulgarians would do 6 near maximal lifts above 90%, circuit max lifts, 92 to 97, and on to all-time records. 6 in the morning, take a half-hour break, do 6 more, then come back in the afternoon, do 6 more. That's 18, 6 days a week. Plus, he did spatial pulls. A lot of people think all they did was clean jerk stance. That's not true. Buy a book called The Pocket Hercules. It talks all about NAMS training. You'll see how many spatial pulls he did. As he went on, they did stop doing some spatial pulls. But I want to bring up a point too. We don't have model weightlifters. I got guys coming, they lift 181, they're 5'10". You got to be 5'1", 5'2". Let's get with the ball game here. I'm not, I love basketball, but not in the NBA. I'm 5'5". Why ain't a basketball player? Because I'm 5'5". You can't be 5'10", be a 181, and think you're going to succeed in Olympic weightlifting. It's not. Why? Because you have to be built to have a big squat and a compact enough to have a big amount of back strength.
Am I correct in saying in some of those books they have the measurements for the perfect weightlifter?
Exactly. They're right in these books. Like you need to do Olympic weightlifting, I suggest. So Chinese do this. Chinese train very, very, very similar to us. We do 6 lifts at above 90%. All right, we use 2 weights. We'll do 2 exercises. So let's say you do a power snatch and a squat clean. But you work up the first lift at 90 or above, then 90, close a record, and then a record. So that's 3. Go to another exercise, do the very same thing. So you're getting 6 lifts at that time at 90% and above. Same thing for the squat. A squat, like a front squat and a back squat variation, or an overhead squat. No one ever talks about the overhead squat, So there's 3 variations that you need to do this with. And by maxing out, because what I notice when I have weightlifters come here, they'll do set after set with 275. I put 285, they can't freaking budge the thing. Their central nervous system has never been exposed to that extra amount of stimulus. Right now, Ahmed, I wish he was here. I tried to get a hold of him. He's broke every freaking record. He's been here 3 weeks. Broke his power clean, fold clean, push jerk. He's broke all of his records. In 3 weeks? He came here, a year or so ago? Did this very same thing, come back, went nowhere, because no one pushes him. You don't need coaches, guys. You need training partners. You don't need no coach that's never lifted any big weights in the first place and never have you max out. If you don't max out, you're not going to get strong. Maximal strength is the key. Read it in this Practice of Science of Strength Training. It will explain why you have to do max effort weight training.
Well, what's the relationship between max effort strength and all other forms of strength for weightlifting?
Okay, well, a lot of football coaches have people do Olympic lifts, power clean, power snatch. I think that's fine. It's just 2 exercises. Does not build explosive strength. Only if you train between 30 and 40%. That's fast velocity training. That's where explosive strength is built. All right. It's not if you're trained at 80. It's a speed strength sport. It's not an explosive strength sport. Speed strength. We run 3-week waves. It was basically for a lot of team sports. But I found we broke so many in the last 16 months. We broke 7 world records in the squat, 2 in the bench, 3 in the total. Okay. So we run. I'll tell you what you should run: 75% the first week, 80 the next, 85 the next. On the 4th week, roll back. Let's say you power clean, 75. We'll say 6 triples, and then you do the same thing in the snatch. All right. Then 80 next week, then 85 the next. Then you roll back to the 75. So you go up 5, you roll back 10 for recovery, and you change the exercise. You could be a clean and push jerk, or you could power clean and do an overhead squat. Just make all these variables. If you look at super training, it's got 100 workouts in there. They don't have 2 workouts in there. These guys, what do? They tell me. I ask the lifter what they can do, what they do, and they can tell me in 15 seconds. It'd take me an hour to say what you have to do. Mm-hmm. And it's also in the fundamentals of spatial strength. And one of these, right here, fundamentals of spatial strength by Verkhoshansky. It tells you about, there's 100 workouts in here, not 1 or 2. This is, it's just amazing to me, And you have to have lots of variations. I watched the guys, one of my disclaimers, all right? Now, I watched his wife. It's called the American Documentary of Weightlifting. She's crying in the documentary. She says, I haven't broke a record in a year. She's crying. We break a record every week. So there's something radically wrong. How do we break a record every week? When we break a record, Joe Dirt did stats. We break a record about 92 to 95%, the entire gym, every week in spatial exercise. Not the clean and jerk, not the snatch, but you would do it in the power snatch, the close grip snatch, a front squat, a back squat, all types of exercises, including split cleans. People, why would I do that? I haven't done it in 50 years. Well, because you got to pull the bar higher. That's why. It's a back exercise. You need to do good mornings. No one does good mornings. I have these guys, I mean, their back is so pathetically weak, it's ridiculous. That's why they stay vertical when they pull. If you stay vertical, you're only using leg drive. I've had coaches come here and say, oh, it's all legs. I go, you're out of your mind. That's why you guys suck so bad. They're lifting bigger weights 40 years ago than they are today. So there's something radically wrong here. Your shoulders must stay over the bar as long as possible. The longer you keep your shoulders like this, more hip snap. If you're straight up down, you got no second pull hips. I hope that makes sense to you guys. You got to be over the bar. Again, go back and find some pictures of Lee James. He's a perfect example of how you have to live. Chuck Noon, same thing. About a 380 squat and 380 snatch, 5-bone clean jerk at 242 years ago. Okay.
So then absolute strength is incredibly important. How does that lead to technical improvements?
All right. We do a lot of single joint exercises, you well know. But, a lot of extensions, tricep extensions, back extensions, knee extensions, right? Mm-hmm. Hip extensions. Maximal strength or strong muscle. If you have one weak muscle, it can destroy your technique. It will absolutely destroy it. If you don't have a strong enough lower back to stay over the bar, you can't stay over the bar. If you got weak hips, you're not going to be able to get these big squats. So you have to do that. I've never seen, we pull lots of sleds, we push square barrel. Short distance for us, we don't go miles. Fighters go miles. We go 60 yards, all right, like football players and so forth, power sports. But you got to work single joint. But if you have a lagging muscle, you're going to fail. If you can always do these multi-joint exercises, like I said, the clean and jerk has 4 elements. The weakest one is where you're stuck. You could front squat 700 pounds, and you could clean 700 pounds. But if you can only jerk 300 pounds, you're stuck with a 300-pound clean jerk. So you got to bring these all up. And you need to do a lot of stuff off pins, where there's all concentric work. I've seen in 3 different countries good morning machines. We have one, it's called a back attack. And people say, well, why do you need that? Well, because I looked at these films and the greatest weightlifters in the world were using them. I'm done, I was born tonight, but not last night. Whatever they're doing, I'm going to do. That's all I know. That's why when this guy comes here, right away, I can get him to break records. It's really kind of sad in a way.
So what Olympic lifters can benefit from powerlifting style training, but powerlifters should avoid training like Olympic lifters.
Say that again.
So the question is, explain how Olympic lifters can benefit from powerlifting style training, but powerlifters should avoid training like Olympic lifter.
Well, there's nothing wrong with a powerlifter doing power cleans and power snatch, I believe. I think it's a very great exercise. No one does it, but it's great for upper back, so that's good. But I'm not saying Olympic lifters should power lift. I'm just saying you have to get a big squat, and you have to have a big good morning. And you really need a deadlift. It is powerlift. Like the Chinese are doing it. If the Chinese are doing it, I'm doing it. You know what I'm saying? Whatever they're having for dinner, I'm having that for dinner. Yeah. Because those are some sick-ass strong people. They're just retardedly strong. And they're going there and they're passing all drug tests that everyone else passes. That's all I know. I'm not into the drug testing anyhow, but they're going by the same rules of everybody and they're dominating. Find out why. Here in America, I remember Drago years ago, from Romania, he was the coach at the Olympic Center, and he said American weightlifters, their training isn't dense enough. By that, he means they train too slow and they don't do enough work. If you follow the percent training that I do, if you got a 400 clean and jerk, and you train at 75%, which would be 300, and then, at 75% and 80% would be 320, and then, of course, 85 would be 340. It's all based, you cannot overtrain because it's based on your strength. There's no guesswork to this. When I bring a new person in, it takes no time at all. We just, however strong they are, to use these percents. Why? Because that barbell has to move at a certain velocity. It's the same in weightlifting as powerlifting. You have to move at the same velocity. All right? So that way, that's how we keep all this in check. We never overtrain with the multi-joint exercises. Then let's say, Tom, you squat and your knees pulling. Well, what do we know? We know your hips and groins weak. We work on your hips and groin. We don't keep squatting because it's never going to change. Yeah. If you pull up deadlift and you round over terribly, we know you got to build up your back more. I mean, we look at the simplest elements. We change what's weak and then it actually becomes stronger than the other muscles. Then it's like crawling up a ladder. This is weak. Now we got this stronger than that, and it goes right on up until we're breaking world records.
Do you think CrossFit influenced top-tier athletes to focus on competing for money versus competing in Olympic Games? And the same goes for football?
It's got a lot to do with it. CrossFit is a great sport, and it's a great competition for CrossFit athletes, which is non-directed fitness. I just wrote about this in my GPP chapter of my next book. And you had to be sport specific. If you're going to train GPP, it must be very close to SPP, what your sport is. All right? It's not going to play, go out and play football if you're going to try and knock someone out, in a fight. It's got to be close. Everything has to be similar. GPP has to parallel SPP.
How many Olympic weightlifters have you refused to train on Westside Barbell?
Refused?
Yeah.
Really? They send them here. I bring them. But I mean, it's tough because they're not even like qualified to be a weightlifter.
Would you take a high caliber weightlifter?
I'd take a high caliber weightlifter, but he actually would need a training partner.
What would it take for them to get here?
Some decent lifts, and come here because I could take these guys. And I took one kid, Mike Bergner sent me. He had a 300 clean. In 3 months, he did 330 clean. I had a guy come up. I won't say why. I don't want to get into this. He criticized me for writing my weightlifting book. But one of his guys come out of his club, had a 340 clean for a year. In 45 minutes, he did 365 in my gym. I had a assistant coach at LSU, an ex-quarterback, 6'5", with the same lift, 340, and did the very same thing. And he said, "How did you do that?" It was all by bands. 1967, Dr. Medvedev says you must use bands or cords. But because weightlifting is a momentum sport, you have to cut that momentum down. And, like I said, you pick up a weight, it gets up to here, it actually reaches zero. That's why you do that. It comes to zero. So what if you picked it up and bands is pulling you down? Then you got to overspeed to get underneath the bar. Also, the squat under is very important. If you use bands, you got to dive under that bar quick. And then as you stand up, see, there's no perfect weight in the bottom or the top. If you used only bands, because of shrinkage, it'd be too light in the bottom, maybe too heavy in the top. If you use only weights, the weights would be too heavy in the bottom, you never get up. See, so you need to use a combination of methods of training, bands with the weights. It does not distort any form. Chico came here to visit me a couple years ago, and I got in an argument kind of with his interpreter. He said, speed is more important than strength. And I said, no, it's not. So Chico said, what are you talking about? And we told him. He told us a story at breakfast. He said that they went to Bulgaria, and they watched the Bulgarians, and they go, oh, my God, that's some of the worst form I've ever seen. It's 1996, if I recall. He said, we're going to kick their ass at the Europeans. Well, they showed up, the Europeans, and the Russian opened up in the snatch, and he closed. One lift, he closed. He couldn't get any better. The Bulgarian come out with the bigger weight, of course, does an ugly lift, white lights, an uglier lift, white lights, another one. Strength's more important than speed.
It seems...
It's not gymnastics, not ice skating. You're not getting perfect 10s here, guys. You need to lift some freaking weights.
From observing the weightlifters that you've worked with and other athletes from different sports, not only the training is different from what they're used to, and normally they're all so out of shape it takes them a minute to get into shape, but their mindset changes. And that, to me, seems to be the big difference. That we've had Olympic lifters who came in here who wouldn't talk to anyone, who start walking out with their head held high. And a lot of that comes from the mindset you instill. Could you talk about that a little bit?
They also start running their mouth. They come in there quiet as a mouse. I don't know what the hell they're thinking because they suck. And they come in and like me, Ahmed, we had to get Ahmed fired up. He missed the clean twice. We get up his ass, and he makes the clean. I go, why did you make that? Because now you're putting out, because we're on you. I'm going like, this is pathetic to me. And so he gets a clean record, but we had to be on him. That's what I watched tape, and the guy's taking the record, and everyone else is sitting there on the couch, just sitting there daydreaming. They need to be helping each other. You don't have any music in your training halls. You're lucky to have a glued hand bench in there. Tommy, what does China have of ours?
ATP, inverse curl, reverse hyper.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Maybe you guys ought to have the same thing because it will help you dramatically. We do a lot of power cleans in the belt squat machine. Belt around your waist. Did I come up this? No. The Russians did. Years ago, they did power cleans and belt squats with belt squats and push jerks. So you need to do these things. If you branch out, like I tell people, if I put $1 million under a rock in a parking lot and you walk out there and you pick up a rock and there's no millionaire there, I'll bet your ass you're going to pick up every rock in that parking lot. If I give you the conjugate system as a method of training that gives you a lot of variables, right? It's your job to find which ones work. And you find out the 5 or 6 exercises that work, you're on the road. It'll take you as high as your potential. I can't go higher than your potential. Like I tell people here, I can get you up to here. It's your balls got to get you up to there. You got to have balls. I mean, you just got to.
Before we conclude, we've had numerous Olympic weightlifting coaches come in here. And since I've been here over 10 years, and I've seen them all come in, say the same things, we're going to crush it, we follow Westside. None of them really follow Westside. They try their best, but they don't. What do you have to say to the coaches? Like, what can they do to improve? Like, have you ever shut down your doors to a coach for information?
Never. Of any kind.
Yeah. But why don't they come here, and what can they do?
Well, that's a good question, because I know 2 old master sport coaches from the old Soviet Union. They wouldn't let them coach. Dr. Mel Siff wanted to go to Colorado and help them. They refused him. It's Chuck Noon's, I told you about 501 clean jerk, 380 snatch years ago. I said, why didn't you help him? Said, they don't want me to help them. I've heard this over and over and over. Open your doors to people. It's an embarrassment. It's just an embarrassment. I love the sport. It's a great sport. It's a beautiful sport. But my God, you got to get better at it. You know, we win everything in the Olympics. There's nothing we can't win medals in except that sport. And it doesn't make any sense. People say, well, the NFL's got all the people. I haven't seen 132-pound NFL players lately. Maybe you have. I haven't. You know, they're out there. Like I said, another thing that kills them, Tom, go to soccer field here in Columbus. How many kids play soccer? 5,000? Go play basketball camp. How many got? 5,000? Football camp, 5,000? Baseball camp, 5,000? Weightlifting camp, 5. What the hell? If you don't have a big base, remember what I say? A pyramid's only as tall as its base. You need a base. You got to start with elementary kids and give them medals or something. All you got to do is go to a few schools, donate a set of weights, and some half-ass coach to help them, and then go on to what's the next after elementary school? Junior high, and then high school, and present college, scholarships. Well, there are throwers in this country. Joe, what's his name? Kovacs comes in my gym. He's a shot putter. Now, he's big, 6'4". I'm a 74-foot shot putter. He's 300 pounds. I set the pins at chest level in my power rack. He takes 545 and bangs it up into him for a triple. Now, what if he's Olympic? He's a thrower. Thrower needs straps. That's why they do it. But you can't get an Olympic lifter here to budge 545, let alone bang it up into here at nipple height. Boom, boom, boom. I'm going, holy crap, you're going to rip my power rack out of the floor. And that's what they need is we're going to overabundance of strength. Watch the Chinese. Read my book. There's a book about Chinese, but it doesn't have workouts. My book has workouts. I don't know why people are so against it. When I used Olympic weightlifting methodologies to get where I am, I knew back then Olympic powerlifting, what was the gripe? Slow. We're all slow. Well, we lift bigger weights. Larger weights move slow. The velocity's going to slow down. They're bigger weights. Funny thing about gravity, how that works. But I realized we had to be faster. I didn't even pay no attention to Olympic lifting. But then I got to thinking one day, they've got to be able to move weights slower. Because when weights get bigger, they're slower and they can't move them. You could just dump 10 pounds and they're dead. They could do, I've seen a guy do 6 triples. I could jump him 10, 15 pounds. He can't even make one. I'm going like, what in the hell? They're like got a governor in their brain. Their central nervous system is almost like an endurance runner. He's never going to put out. They're very good at doing very little. And so you got to get them where they learn to put out. That's why you got to do the two max separate workouts a week, where you're doing 6 on one day and, ours is on Wednesday and a Monday, and 6 the other day. The other 2 days are dedicated to speed. We do 25 squats and 25 pulls. I'm asking you guys to maybe do, 18 squats, 18 pulls. or 18 snatches and 18 clean variations. Change the variation. Every 3 weeks, change. Because you guys, if you know what the law of accommodation are, there should be a picture of it in a Webster's dictionary, because you do the same thing over and over and over. The only thing that's going to happen, it will get worse. You can't get better. It's impossible. If you spell your name, the only thing you can do is spell it wrong. You can't spell it better. You can only spell it wrong. And that's what happens in Olympic weightlifter. It's the law of accommodation, and they suffer terribly. They don't know how to use weight periodization. All my weights, I don't do 10s. I do 10s and tricep extensions and back raises, not the classical lifts. And why do I do 5s? People ask me in our sport, why do you do 5s? You used to do 2s. Because I can move 5 just as fast as 2. I put out the same force, so why wouldn't I? Now I'm getting greater muscle tension, carrying the bar for 5 reps instead of 2. And like I said, the last 16 months, I have the lightest person, 122 pounds, squat 700. But seven squat workouts, 2 bench workouts, and 3 total workouts. I mean, that's in the last 16 months. And 2 months from now, we're going to break some more.
I hope this isn't the last conversation we have in this. I'm going to assume from the content it's not. But Lou, what I would like to do is reach out to these coaches. I'd love to get them down here and to talk to them. Because I think if you talk to these coaches to see where are they sticking, like what are they not doing and why aren't they open, I think that would make for some great information for people.
I've never had one ask me how I use bands. Not one.
Why do you think that is?
Because they're just a closed group of guys. Powerlifters, they don't know everything. I'll steal everything from you. I'll steal everything from you.
That's very true.
And I'm going to make my guys win. But they don't want to do this. The coach is not responsible for the coach. He's responsible for the lifters that he's coaching. You got to look like that. Every day, I worry about my guys. My guys, they make a progress. It's on me. There's an old story about Olympic weightlifter Igor or something. Igor would go to meet and he'd screw up. And they'd go, Igor, what happened? What happened? He'd go and he'd screw up. What happened, Igor? Then he got, real good and he won world championships. He started coaching. His lifters would screw up and they'd go, Igor, what happened? It was always on Igor. It was never on so it's always on me. I look at it, it's always on me. I don't take any credit for their success, only that they're smart enough to do it. But if they screw up, it's me. The NFL, someone pulls a hamstring, it's the coach. You can cry your ass off. The coach has got to have enough sense to learn how to train hamstrings, and they don't. That's why I got all the knee injuries. No one's got necks anymore. That's why I got neck injury. It's a different sport. But all they got to do is go back in history and look at football players' necks and train their damn hamstrings. And same thing. You can't be closed-minded. People's going to argue with me, right? And he's argue with Albert Einstein. And Einstein said, you can win an argument with an intelligent man, but you never win an argument with an ignorant man. And I'll close there.
Lou, thank you so much.
You're welcome.